Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in today. On this episode of conventioNOT, we chat with Justin Turkowski, owner of Variables Productions. Justin's a photographer, a filmographer, and a producer. But ultimately, after knowing Justin for a few years, he's just a normal Midwestern guy who confidently chased his passions and his dreams from a young age. And those passions have taken him to incredible places. Currently, he's living on the North Shore of Oahu, but his destinations are remote and worldwide, and his activities and his day-to-day job is incredible, from deep sea diving and spearfishing to hunting and surfing big waves. He's incredibly dynamic, talented, but above all else, humble. And that's why I love this guy. It was such a pleasure chatting with Justin about all the things he's done and where he gets his motivation from. And I can't wait for you guys to get to know him a little bit more. So tune in, everybody, to the latest episode of conventioNOT with Justin Turkowski.
Celebrated.
I knew Fred Bear, the song Fred Bear, before I knew who Ted, like, do you think that's just where we're from? Like, do you think kids in California know of Fred Bear growing up?
I was just talking to somebody that has a Fred Bear bow, and they're just like, do people even know what this thing is anymore? But I think you'd have to be like no hunting to know Fred Bear, I think.
Yeah, I mean, growing up. All right, sorry. I guess we are recording, Justin.
Cool.
So we got Justin Turkowski today with me, and unfortunately Ryan couldn't join us, so I'm gonna stumble through this myself. But Justin and I have known each other for a couple years now. He lives up on the North Shore with me here in Oahu. Strangely, though, we're both from the Midwest. Justin hails from Minnesota. And I'm trying to think of how we actually met. It was through Liam, a friend of a friend. And I'll save how I know that friend for that story.
Oh, that's a good story.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I should dedicate that one. Someday I'll get Liam on here, and I'll get Liam to participate in that story.
Well, what do his kids call you?
The backyard intruder.
That's how you met him.
Yeah, we're going to leave it at that. So Justin and I, we started recording midway through a conversation we were having. We're talking about Ted Nugent generally. Well, we were talking about Joe Rogan, and then we were talking about a guest he had, Ted Nugent. And then we devolved into Fred Bear and hunting, and how where we're from, both of us kind of grew up like that was gospel, like that was around, whether it was in your household or your friends or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it was well before my teen years that I knew all the words to "Oh, Fred Bear." It's
a great song. Yeah, but I think the Midwest is just the hunting culture. We're really brought up in it a lot more than I say most other areas that are closer to the coasts and things like that, I guess.
I've talked about it on the show before, how my dad wasn't really a hunter, but we had a gun cabinet, and it was full of guns, not like one or two, and I mean, in most families that I knew, like those were heirlooms, like some of those had been passed down. It wasn't necessarily just for everyday use by any means, but that was, again, like, I grew up in Michigan. You grew up in Minnesota. Like, I don't know what people growing up in Ohio and Indiana, but I feel like pretty similar, outdoorsy, hunting type people. Yeah,
it's like here in Hawaii, you'll get passed down like a surfboard or something, but
exactly
at home you get passed down weapons and guns, and they're really close to it. Like when I think of my dad, I think of him teaching me how to hunt, and for most of my years of my life, he's given me a gun every year for my birthday. So really? At home, I have like a whole cabinet of weapons that my dad's given me that are really close to me. He's put like a plaque on one that says J Turk, and it was like my 410. It was the first gun I shot an animal with, and he put a plaque on it, like shot his first animal with.
Yeah.
That.
See, that's
really special.
That's incredible. I mean, yeah. And I don't know. We're not going to talk too well. We're going to talk about hunting because it's a part of what you do professionally, I think. But we won't get into hunting a whole lot, but the gist of, I have to say, my feelings about hunting is that that's where I'm from, and it's a part of what people do there. So whether you're into hunting or not, I really don't care. There's just a lot of parts of the world where that's a part of their culture. So it's not a matter of opinion. Anyways, moving on a little bit from that, I honestly, so like I said, Justin and I know each other as a couple random dudes up here on the North Shore that have kind of managed to survive. I'm not trying to martyr us too much. We've done a little bit better than survive, but over the years, we've had a lot of conversations just about kind of the different routes that led us here. And kind of since we've gotten here, the ups and downs, the reality of being a kind of import to Hawaii, particularly the North Shore. And through it, though, Justin has a very unique background in his field of work. He works in essentially cinematography. He owns a production company called Variables. And we're going to get into that a bit, but I just wanted to give a little bit of an intro on Justin and explain, and I'd like to delve into a little bit deeper today, just like his Minnesota and like how the hell he ended up here. Because I think what you're going to find through the end of this is that Justin is a pretty humble guy. He's not super eager to talk about himself a ton. I'm going to force him to today. As a videographer and cinematographer, he's used to being on the other side of the lens. So I'm really excited to hear his perspective. I get to see his perspective all the time, but to hear it today is going to be pretty awesome. So thanks for coming on, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Michael Sinnott. It's good to be here, and it is a pleasure to meet you. I think it's rad because the conversations we do have when we're sitting, drinking beers and just looking at the ocean and just like, we're both like, how the hell did we end up here? I think that's really great to share that with somebody here. Cause I feel like I'm out of my league, which I am. I mean, I'm from Minnesota and I live on the North Shore of Oahu, where we're from as far as you can get from the ocean really as you can. And now we're surrounded by the kind of the gnarliest ocean and the furthest from any big landmass island archipelago that exists, the Hawaiian island chain, which is pretty extreme. But it's really great to have conversations with you just to get perspective of a Midwest perspective of like, how did we get here?
Yeah. And I mean, it's, again, if you were to stumble across this guy's Instagram, you would immediately be convinced that this is the world he was brought up in and that he's been here forever, because it's a gallery of people's dreams and like incredible locations. And like, like I said, he's super modest about it, but I met Justin and thought he was just another like Midwest dude. So I figured I could like participate in these foreign activities with him. And then we went diving a couple times and I was like, okay, I'm not really a part of this. I'll stay by the boat, guys. Don't worry. I've gone surfing with him a couple times and I'm just like, whoa, dude, this is dangerous. Like what you're calling a casual morning session. But I've never seen him get real nervous, real uncomfortable. Fortunately, because like I said, in those situations, he's way more in charge than I am. I'm just looking around, clueless and concerned, and Justin's got a grin on his face, looking over his shoulder, making sure I'm okay.
Yeah, those moments I think are what I kind of essentially, I guess, live for.
Yeah,
just it really is. Like even like our mutual friend Liam Wilmot, that he's really the one who's kind of taught me how to surf, like you see what he goes and surf. He surfs like, 25-foot waves, like, and that's like that's kind of what all he surfs.
That's when he surfs.
Yeah. That's when he surfs. Yeah. That's like, and then when I'm out on a jet ski and he'll take me out, like people will look at me and be like, you're going out with Liam? Wow, he's a freaking maniac. And I'm just like, holy shit, what am I getting myself into? And I go out there and like, Liam just loves it. He like calls me a stunt man because he's like, whenever he tells me to like go on something, I go, and I'm just like, maybe it's kind of naive in a way, but I do, I trust him. And I know that I I know that the things that really make me the most excited in this world make me nervous.
Yeah.
And like, if we're doing step offs off a jet ski, like I'm super nervous. Like even when he calls me in the morning, like, hey, we're taking out the ski, you know,
Your
and it's
stomach
like,
just starts to turn, right?
And if it's like, 10 foot and he's like, hey, we're going to take out the ski, I start to get nervous right away. And that was the same feeling I used to get when I was learning how to snowmobile and going into the backcountry, like in like Revelstoke, British Columbia, like where I feel like I really cut my teeth snowmobiling. I would get so nervous, like when there was a big storm and we're driving from Salt Lake to Revelstoke, just like, holy shit, like when I'm going into something that I don't know. Yeah. And it's like, I have to like enter this new like area of like kind of controlling fear, but yet to like, you know, like to drop in on a wave, to drop in on a mountain. Like those are the things that definitely I feel like have shaped me. And that's like somewhat of my, I guess, addiction is just those fear moments, you know?
Well, that, and like I've had a couple other guests on that I was able to talk about like those environments of actual danger. Like we're not talking about fear of a presentation or, you know, fear of asking someone out on a date. We're talking about like the reality of a very dangerous physical situation that you're purposely entering into, with the best case scenario of a rush, maybe some footage. And now Justin does this professionally, so there's some added motivation, but we act and talk about that. Like that's, and I'm not trying to be, you know, impressive by any means here, but like, that's a part of our lives now. Like most people, dude, I'm 38, man. Like I didn't anticipate in my mid 20s that I was going to start doing real dangerous stuff in my late 30s. Yeah. Like I figured that was past me, you know what I mean? But now at this point in my life, if anything, it's ramped up. And you say like the addiction, and people say that nonchalantly, but it's true, man. Like, can you foresee yourself ever being in a suburban environment, like ever again?
No, it's so hard for me to go to town, Kimmy or I. It's so hard for us to go to town in like a cement, like closed area and have traffic and things like that. It's just like, no, I mean, I don't.
No, the fear in town is like how much something's going to cost, right? And like how long you're going to have to wait in traffic. It's not. I would love to be in town and somebody grab my wallet. You know, that would probably be the most exciting visit to town I ever went on.
But I love that people love town because it's like, I love country and it's like, that means there's less people. But
well, exactly. We need the and I think, I guess there's two things you mentioned there. And we talked about Liam, and he might come up again, but you talked about that feeling of like entering a situation of, like I said, real danger, being aware of that, but proceeding nonetheless. And like you mentioned earlier, like growing up and hunting and like, so like when I was a kid, my dad used to say like, okay, before we do this, what's the rule? And then all of us kids would say, don't tell your mother, which basically meant we're about to go do something fun and cool, but there's a likelihood that mom wouldn't participate in this. Yeah. And legitimately, if we tell mom, it should be a couple of weeks from now. Like when you were a kid, was your dad getting you into shit? Like, was that like just part of growing, not into shit, but you know what I mean? Like, were you going on adventures as a kid?
Yeah, no, I definitely was, but it was mostly just with my friends. My dad would take me on adventures, hunting and stuff, but nothing like crazy. Okay. Like the stuff I'm doing where I shouldn't be telling, it was mostly my parents. And that was like the groups I would like run with, or my brother. When he was around, my brother maybe wasn't always the best influence on me in certain things. Like I have like, multiple like head injuries, like because of my brother, and also the activities that.
What's the family breakdown? I know you have a sister, you have a brother. What's the age difference?
My sister's 3 and my brother's 3 older than her, like 6 older.
You're the
me,
baby.
So, yeah, I'm the baby.
Oh, for some reason I thought your sister was younger than you.
So I was like the guinea pig when I was a kid. Like they would just send me down on anything kind of thing. Yeah.
What's the age difference between you and them?
3 years from my sister and like 6 from my brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to tag along, but you were definitely tagging along, right? Like, cause I'm 4 from my closest sibling, 6 from my brother. Okay, same thing. So like he didn't beat me up, but yeah, he'd push me down a hill. You know what I mean? Like we were too separate to for those experiences, but yeah, I would have followed him anywhere. I would have done anything to be able to participate.
Yeah. I think I also just grew up with relationships like, because I'm kind of always, especially here in Hawaii, you're surrounded by professional athletes, and I am in no way, shape, or form a professional athlete at anything I'm doing. Like, so, but when I grew up, I had a friend who was a professional snowboarder, and that's what kind of got me into video. Is I just want to like take videos.
Really? Okay.
Snowboarding. So then it was like, I kind of surrounded myself moving to Salt Lake City, and I was surrounded by these really talented athletes all the time, where it's just like, they really upped my level, because I'm just like an adventure junkie where I just want to go do shit. And if like, there's people doing fun stuff, I want to be a part of it, you know, and I may not be the best, but I'm still going to go. And coming to Hawaii, it's just like, there's professional athletes and people that are in excellent shape, because you're really dealing with the pinnacle of like ocean activities here on Oahu and the whole Hawaiian chain. So I just find myself really grateful when I'm allowed to go on a sailing adventure to a different island, or go surf with Liam, or go dive with Kimmy, who taught me to dive. I'm just like, I feel like I'm so grateful to be in those situations, because I learned so much. And I think it's always a very important thing. You know, going into these situations, it's just like, it's easy for me to not know anything, because I feel like I've kind of always just known that. I've always just like treated these situations. And I really do honestly feel like I'm going into these situations not knowing what I'm doing, whether it's driving a snowmobile up a mountain and it's just like, hey, how do I like do a high mark or whatever? It's like, you know, you do this, that, and then you screw up a bunch, and then you're going diving. It's just like, how do I hold my breath? And going out with Liam, like, how do I do this? Like, so just being vulnerable to say like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please help me? And it's like, totally, I embarrass myself all the time still today, but it's like, that's like kind of just part of my process, where it's like, yeah, it's like, oh shit, I would love to like show somebody that I can actually surf a wave. But the reality is, it's like, I can't actually surf a wave, you know? Yeah.
No, I mean, we try to keep up, right? But like you say, that vulnerability, I mean, and that's impressive. And like, who doesn't want to teach someone who wants to be taught, right? And who's open and honest about like, hey, teach me anything. I'm a completely open canvas and need to be taught. But a lot of that comes with age too, right? Like when you're telling me when you were a teenager, you were like that cat. I mean, there's a competitive part of you, isn't there? I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, I played ice hockey. That's what really gave like, and my older sister is a very, very competitive person. So there was competition is in my whole entire life. Yeah. You know, and I think that as I did get older, I've kind of, and, you know, gone into certain individual sports like snowboarding, wakeboarding, surfing. You know, they're like individual sports where your only competition is you and your like kind of ego for the most part. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I do like a good competition in things, but I think I found myself like really humbled by being around these professional athletes that just like, you know, their competition is basically psychological in themselves, whether they can land a trick or if they can, you know, withstand like diving a certain depth or getting a fish, you know, or something like that. You know, I think that's where, so it's not a competition with individuals, it's having to deal with your own kind of ego, which is still definitely something that I, you know, I guess battle with in my own way. But yeah, as far as like competition when I was a kid, like, if I was still in that psychological age coming here to Hawaii, I wouldn't last. It'd eat me up and throw me away if I was like still that competition kid where I wanted to be the best at everything. It's just like, you can't control nature. You can't control those things that you're kind of at the whim of when you're trying to get adventure out of them, you know?
Well, see, and I love that because that's one of my favorite things about your personality, Justin, is like, I'm admittedly like, I'm more of a, I'll be the first to acknowledge, like, I'm a baby when it comes to a lot of like my competitive nature, because I don't admit it. I don't think I want to compete. I just want to win. And the reality is, you know, that's a very immature mindset. And you can walk around and wear that on your shoulder. As you do that going into adulthood, though, no one wants to fucking play with you anymore. So you have to, you have to hide that. It doesn't, you can pretend it doesn't exist, but you know, being a sore loser openly sucks. And like I said, no one wants to play with you anymore. But I do like admire, and I think it's learned, right? Like you subjected yourself to elite athletes from a young age. And maybe kind of accepted, like, these dudes are training for the Olympics. That's not what I'm here to do. Mm-hmm. I'm here to snowboard. And you know what? Like, hey, here's a niche for me. Here's my place with these individuals. I may not be doing the gnarliest stunts or this or that, but I can participate. And through that, I get to have all these experiences. Yeah. And like, but that's what I love about you, man. You act like you're just like on the sidelines hanging out. I said, you got to check out Justin's feed, because like, he can't do the things he does unless he's going alongside these elite athletes. And more recently, his stuff is a little bit more focused on kind of hunting and diving. And when I say diving, I'm talking specifically about free diving. So this is, single breath, scuba, essentially, where Justin is always, at least from what you see, he's filming. So he's documenting what other divers are doing. It'd be really cool if he could take a scuba tank down there and just like be on the sidelines, but he can't, because the bubbles bother things and it affects the environment too much.
Yeah, it doesn't work so easy with spearfishing if you're on scuba.
Hey, conventioNOT listeners, thanks for joining us today. If you like what you hear, you could really help us out by taking a second to review us on your podcast channel. So whether you listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google, or wherever it might be, take 1 second, go out there, give us some stars, give us some words about a review. We'd really appreciate, and it helps us get new listeners. Thanks.
I think that's a pretty good segue, because I haven't gotten into like why the hell you're in Hawaii yet. Mm-hmm. I know you finished up high school and you go right into college? Like,
yeah, straight away.
You were doing like film studies stuff, right?
Yeah, film studies, television production, basically the university I grew up on. My mom worked there her whole life.
Oh, no shit.
She just recently retired. So she was the career services director at the university I went to. But then I also went to school in Australia, which I would highly recommend. Like, that kind of like set my life in motion.
Like the study abroad, or like abroad, yep. You were gone for a year?
Like a half a year only.
Okay.
But that changed my life. That like set into motion. Like, I want to see this world.
Yeah. I did. That's funny you mentioned that. I did a study abroad my 4th year at school too.
Oh, where at? Mine was my 2nd year.
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, but basically I was working at a sushi restaurant. I told you it was a long story, but I was working at a sushi restaurant at the time. And I found out that the professors who were in charge of the study abroad, that tenured professors in the, political science department, were regulars at the sushi bar that I used to work at. So I struck up a relationship with them and eventually convinced them to allow me to participate. So we went to Barbados and Trinidad and then Guyana. Wow. So yeah, I thought that was a lot more interesting, or at least I was going to get a taste of more.
Oh, you went to Guyana. A lot of people don't go to Guyana.
The whole idea was to immerse us into different culture, but to do it very intentionally and slowly. Mm-hmm. And then Guyana was like, as we were flying in, they let us know, like, hey, just so you know, the Caucasian population in this country just changed because, 40 of you are landing right now. And like, the first thing you need to know about is this guy named, Brian. Well, we'll just say that Jonestown, they made sure we were very familiar with all of that.
Shit, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last group of white people that showed up down there and the mark they left. So I always do this. I talk way too much about myself. We can cut all that out though. You had a kind of normal first couple years and then you did Australia. At that point, like kid coming from Minnesota, Australia, did you know anybody? Like, had you ever been on that kind of trip?
No, I remember just getting on the bus from the Brisbane airport and being like, what the hell did I do? Like, I just signed up for 6 months of this. At the end, like, I never really got into surfing or really diving there. Just the ocean was so foreign to me there.
Yeah.
That I went in and swam in it, but I never really got heavy into the surfing, even though I was like by Byron Bay, one of the best places to surf in the world.
Shit.
The idea of travel and adventure changed my life, like without a doubt. The people I met, the friends I met, and just like after I saw and I chose to go to Australia because it was English speaking and it was easier for me to get on in certain things. And then And then every year of college after that, I would go to college during the summer because there's nobody really on campus.
Yeah.
And then I'd go during the fall semester and I'd take off the winter semester and move to Salt Lake City and do like the snow. After Australia, I'm just like, I'm going to go do my winters out there.
I can do this.
Yep.
I can live away from home.
I still graduated in 4 years with my bachelor's degree. Just because like going to summers, it's like easier during the summers, you know?
Yeah, that's right. I do remember they were like usually expedited, the summer courses, right? So it'd be like intense.
After my freshman year of college, I took it very serious and I graduated with like a good GPA through college. So it was like, I took it serious because I saw what the future could be given to me if I get good grades. I don't think I've shown somebody my resume in like 10 years.
Well, yeah, sorry. I'm kind of being in my mind. I'm like, yeah, but what he does nowadays, I don't think anyone's asking him what about his grades, you know? I mean, but yeah, I love that, like that transition. I mean, but looking back, would you say like that was the first thing that you did that was totally foreign? My
dad's from Chicago. So I went and played baseball in Chicago for, like 1 or 2 summers, which was foreign because I just lived with my relatives there and I just went there and played like immersive baseball. Okay. And
I didn't know you were that into baseball growing up.
Yeah, I totally was. I was into all sports, you know, but yeah, that was the most foreign thing. And that like, I'm here essentially because
that started in motion, right?
Yeah.
At that point, you're living out your dreams, right? Yeah, like snowboarding was your thing.
Yep.
And you're surrounded by the greatest snowboarders in the world, arguably, right? At that time. And like some of them are high school buddies, childhood buddies.
Yeah, totally.
To have that exposure to that extreme environment and to see the best doing it. Like, I don't know, like and I had buddies who followed a similar path to you in that they were more on the kind of documenting side of it. Mm-hmm. They were participating. Again, obviously you have to be to go along, to be there to get those shots. And I don't know, like when you started filming, were you just the kid who borrowed your parents' camcorder and had one?
Yeah, it totally started with borrowing my parents' VHS camera.
Like you were just the guy that had a camera, right?
Yeah, totally. And just filmed us like building jumps at a golf course to snowboard off of. And then yeah, I mean, I worked. I started working summers and I saved up my money. And that was like probably the best money I had like made was when I was delivering pizzas for a while. I kind of self-funded a lot of Australia and then I started buying cameras, professional equipment.
So you were investing into your own stuff.
Exactly. Yep. All my money kind of went towards cameras and stuff and editing equipment. And
but I remember though, like there was a transition from, because we grew up doing the same shit. I was skating and it transitioned from that one guy who could get away with stealing his parents' camcorder to, as we got a little bit older, a couple guys started taking it more seriously. At that age, dude, nobody's paying you to film them, right? Like you're working your ass off and spending all your free money on equipment that is essentially showing off other people's abilities, right? Like, and I always
true.
And you never you got just as much out of filming.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I never had the ambition for somebody to film me, I guess. And I was having fun doing it just because like I saw camera and editing and being able to tell those stories with video. I saw the future in video, like I'm not saying how I predicted the video, but it's, I knew there was a future in video for me and that it would allow me to travel the world and meet people from around the world. One winter, I remember I shot the whole entire winter and Capita Snowboards gave me a $500 check at the end of the year. And I was like so stoked. I'm like, Mom, can you hang this up?
For like how many hours of shit? Like just roughly. I mean, hundreds?
It was a whole winter long from like December to like March,
So you basically just turned them over hundreds of hours probably of footage.
Well, yeah, I edited it and gave them just the best.
Oh, you even gave them the best of everything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
so that was actually the next question I was going to ask you is when's the first time like somebody gave you a paycheck? Was that like the first paycheck you ever got for filming?
That I was like really stoked on. You know, like there's other like little gigs I do here and there that are really great. But like, yeah, that was somebody where it's just like, wow, this is like a recognized company that I look up to. And and they gave me a check. It's like, wow, I'm like a professional shooter in my mind. And like and I don't even know if like I asked for the money or not, but Blue, the owner of Capita Snowboards, is just such a rad dude. Anyway, it's like I go shoot for him for nothing today. It was so fun back then, and like,
so they just like knew of you through.
Well, the professional snowboarder I was working with was sponsored by them. So they were making a video.
All right. Well, I think that's a fair way to, fast forward. And now you're in Hawaii. Something significant happened between those things because there's not really a lot of snow here. So moving here, you gotta give me a little bit of like, I know you and Kimmy met, and that's what brought you out.
Kid from my hometown that I was doing a triathlon with him, and he was like in my sister's grade or around that age. I just went to his house. We did a triathlon. We had some beers. He's like, "Hey, I'm in TV," and I'm like, "Hey, so am I." He's like, "I might need somebody to go to Hawaii." I'm like, "I've never been to Hawaii. I've never really had the ambition to go to Hawaii again because it's so foreign." And then like,
what was he doing on TV?
He was doing like a private like pilot TV show.
Really?
And then he asked me, do you want to go to Kona, Hawaii, Oahu, Hawaii? And then the next shoot is in Mexico. And then there's 2 Mexico shoots. So he's like, you'll be a production assistant and then associate producer. I'm just like, okay, cool. So I was like a production assistant and then the next gig I was the associate producer. And then the next gig I was the producer of like this pilot show, which was really great, and I met Kimmy throughout there, and we didn't really, start seeing each other and kind of till like most of the work was really done because we were both kind of.
So you met her here in Hawaii. At that point you had done like, you were getting into more outdoor. You weren't just a snowboard filmer, right?
Yeah,
like you had started to kind of venture into other. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. My mom had always taught me like, Justin, it's important that you do what you want to do, but it's important you live where you want to live. So go where you want to go and then find work after that. I had like almost a false sense of confidence coming to Oahu.
Yeah.
And I was like 28 years old and I was like, oh, well, I'll find work. But it was like, it's a little bit harder, it's like a lot of people, they have to fly you back to the mainland if you live on Oahu, but there is a lot of production here and it's a little bit more of a tight knit, community here and there. But
well, that is, and I mean, I commend you. You said you blamed it on yourself when you said you came here, with a bit of overconfidence. I think a lot of people are naive in the challenges they're going to face when they move anywhere, but there's some challenges here in Hawaii. I mean, I don't know if you Google what's the worst part about moving to Hawaii. I don't know what comes up. I bet it's like, it's expensive.
Yeah,
that's really the least of your problems. It really is. And again, no one's going to feel sorry for us. So I won't go down that road, but it's one of the things you and I have had a lot of really good conversations about is just kind of some of those obstacles you didn't anticipate. And it's one thing like socially, being the new kid in school is never that fun, but professionally, it's a completely different can of worms. There's talent out here. There's a lot of talent. But there's only so many opportunities. There's only so many paying gigs. There's only like he talked about, maybe I was a little overconfident in moving here. Well, most of us in our late 20s are overconfident. Like that's inevitable. Even when you're confident, stepping into a new arena like this, like Justin had done, you knew you were taking a chance, right? You were walking away from some comfort.
I went from $300 rent to $1,700 a month, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound like life sucked. You had a pretty cool job. You were interested in what you're doing. Then you had to meet some girl.
It's funny because most people move to Hawaii to be like, oh, I want to live in Hawaii. And I'm just like, I moved to Hawaii for Kimmy and I didn't really know much about Hawaii.
So you were living in town at first when you moved here?
I moved straight to the North Shore.
Oh, but you had visited a couple. Are you talking about like when you
was
were
living in Wahiawa in the center of the island.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then after I went to like North Shore that day and saw the waves and saw like what existed out here. And I'm just like, because I never connected to surfing. I saw surf magazines and I'm just like, one wave is the same as the next, is the same as the next. So I never really connected to surfing. And then like when I went and saw it for myself and like how gnarly and dangerous it was and like just the energy of it, I'm just like, hey, Kimmy, if I do make this move, like, I think I really want to move to the North Shore. And then she's just like, I'm at her house here and she's in Bali traveling. She's like, yeah, go look at a couple spots. And we went and found a spot that was just like awesome. We ended up living in Bali. I went and tried to surf Uluwatu. And if you know surfing, you know Uluwatu as like a gnarly surf.
It's not a beginner spot. Yeah.
And I went out there like in surfing and like, oh, well, it looks easy from the cliff. And then I go out there and surf and the person who's surfing out there with me is Jerry Lopez, you know?
Whoa.
And it's just like freaking, he's like there. And I'm just like,
you and Jerry Lopez are surfing Uluwatu.
Totally. And I'm just eating shit the whole time.
I was going to say, you're trying to surf.
I'm trying to surf at that point. Like the last time I went there, I'm able to like kind of catch waves and like,
cause it's crazy reefy too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a really fast wave that you have to like be on it. And I came down, I put my board down and Kimmy just saw it in my face. She's like, Justin's like beat up. And then like Jerry just came up and for like a half an hour just sat down and talked to me like,
shut up,
on like, hey, you know, like just gave me advice about
Did you
surfing.
know who he was in that
I knew
moment?
why I was there because Kimmy was there for his retreat. But
okay.
Again, like I don't know surfing culture that much.
Just to be clear for any of our listeners, I don't know a good comparison, like an analogy for Jerry Lopez. I always make sports analogies, which just shows of embarrassing, but like Jerry Lopez is friggin' Jordan-esque. Like in the world of surfing, he's a god. He's very, very revered.
They call him Mr. Pipeline because he's like,
yes. Yeah. And one of the things I know of him is part of the reverence for him is he's the Zen master, right? So,
and Kimmy even like, cause she was sitting there next to me. She's like, do you even know like what you're listening to right now? Do you know what you're like doing? And I was just like, and I mean, that was like a really defining point where it really sank in like, holy cow. Like that was really wonderful. And Jerry also and Kimmy have such a wonderful relationship too.
Okay.
Like
So
they're both kind of Zen masters in their own way, you know, Jerry in the world of surfing and yoga, you know, and Kimmy just in free diving, spearfishing, and, you know, and her approach to like animals and things, which is another topic where a lot of people are just like, you know, how can you be like Zen-like to animals when you're killing animals? But it's like, she has this relationship with the ocean, much like Jerry has this relationship with the ocean. I find myself in these situations with these people where they're just like so kind and like the true aloha, where they want to teach me something, because I think they also maybe see my investment to try and do good in it too.
We can't always affect what we project, but to project openness and willingness and vulnerability, like that's not a bad thing. I think a lot of the times, like through our teen years and through our 20s, we hide that shit. I'm not vulnerable. I'm super confident. I got this. I told someone the other day, like, my 20s, I was all about like learning about other things. My 30s, I'm all about like learning about myself. And it's a little bit gnarlier. But it's nice to be able to do it in an environment like this where, okay, if I don't learn how to calm down right now, I may drown. Yeah, you know, like that's a force. Yeah, you learn quick, man. You learn pretty quick. And, you know, like I said before, here you're trying new things. That's no time to lose your cool, lose your shit. I wanted to get into a little bit more specifically, like some of these projects, because I think it'll help people appreciate things a little bit more. And I want to hear your viewpoint, like, because the work that Justin does, like, it's not discreet. It's out there. Like, it's out there for the world to see. It's on commercials. It's a couple months ago, I remember he was doing a BMW ad. He's working for Yeti. He's working for Patagonia. And I'm not trying to name drop. I'm trying to point out that, like, between the environment and the ability and the opportunity, Justin has taken full advantage. And, you know, like he talked earlier about being a production assistant and paying your dues and putting your time in. And like, we all do that shit. Maybe not everyone doesn't admit it, but we all go through that. And Justin took those experiences and combined it with his ability and then started to kind of carve his own path. And I think realistically what he's been able to accomplish is because he started doing shit differently. Justin's old stuff, if you look him up, you're going to see he he participated in, I think is what a pretty well-known, borderline famous snowboard movie called Stance, which came out in what, 2009, 2010?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Stance, to my understanding, was like the first all-female snowboard movie, right?
Yeah, is one of them for sure.
Okay. Yeah. But it was like a big deal in snowboarding, right? Like when it came out, it had some big names in it. And
it had some of the best women snowboarders.
So yeah, that's out there and that's available. But since I've known Justin, he's done all these other things. Like I said, ads and, a year or two ago, him and Kimmy asked Nicole and I if we wanted to like meet up for dinner. And one thing led to another. Of course, we wanted to meet up with dinner. Kimmy's an amazing chef and they always have great food. But all of a sudden, it's like a little video shoot. And it turns into a short piece called Finding a Way, which was ultimately a kind of a short discussion about pollution and specifically microplastics, right? In our oceans. I mean, I think that was what the focus was. More recently, you did a project, which I would love for you to expand on a little bit because it's the first time I've seen you up on a stage. This is called Three Hearts Home. And I would rather Justin explain it than myself.
Yeah. Three Hearts Home is it was a project sponsored by Olukai. And it's mostly a story about like two individuals that are so much alike, but then they didn't even know each other kind of existed in the same type of realm. And then they find out like, wow, we're one and the same. It's like, the gray area kind of between two different sides, like there's the grassroots and then there's the institutionalized part of life and to talk about. But yeah, that was like my first kind of role as more producer director. My thing nowadays in production is I just love to collaborate with other artists. Okay. I think I'm not the greatest at any one sort of those elements. And for the years prior, I've just been trying to do it all. And it's just like the quality of it isn't up to par because it's like I'm shooting it and editing it and Kimmy's writing it and doing voiceover. And then I'm back to editing it. And I just get so burnt out. It's like hard to even like do it. So this project, we hired our friend Rob Taylor from the UK who Kimmy and I we were on a trip. Well, Kimmy got a TV show called Living Free with Kimmy Werner. Yep. And we had 6 episodes on National Geographic, like more on an international scope than say the Nat Geo here.
I remember.
Yeah. It was a wonderful experience. We got to travel the world, but Rob was the DP on the project and I learned so much from him and everything. And at the beginning of the concept, I just planned on shooting it. I'm like, Kimmy, what if we hire Rob to shoot this? He's like, I think the vibe of this is really kind of Rob's vibe. A lot of times I kind of, it's hard because, like with social media and everything like that, it's kind of hard for me to post on social media and be involved in all of that or even marketing for myself. But so I'm trying to go that route a little bit more than say cause there's so much work out there, I guess, even you talking about the competition or being cutthroat. I feel like Kimmy's really helped me kind of hone in and be like, there's enough work for everybody, there's abundance. I sometimes am just like, holy shit, I'm just creating work that goes online and it's just like, okay. And then the next, like, there's such this turnover of like in the digital age of work and needing to post all that time. And I'm not so like involved in that. So it's like, sometimes I'm just like, well, maybe I need to be creating things that are more tangible. So I really get my fill in this world is being able to tell stories that can help educate and kind of create change. And like, even the story, like Three Hearts Home, coming back to it is really telling a beautiful story of like, just heart. And, kind of like what two different perspectives that approach the ocean.
Because it's not like a surprise ending, but we don't want to give the whole thing away. Yeah. But so Three Hearts Home, YouTube, Google, it's 8 minutes long. You will watch it and you will think it was like an hour because you're going to walk away with a lot of thoughts and like emotion. Yeah. I want to follow that thread of the emotional, like, component of your job. And leading into this interview, I was thinking about a specific question that I wanted to ask you, but I've been unable to phrase it. So bear with me here. It's pretty garbled, but have you always thought of like this world, like this work that you do? Do you consider yourself like a documenter, like a scientist, or like an artist? What you do, I mean, you could do it robotically, right? I know you well enough to know you don't do anything robotically, but
I do consider myself an artist in that I've had my hard work has learned the trade of art. Yeah. Where I wouldn't have considered myself an artist a long time ago, but I always have considered myself a hard worker, and the whole art of things, I really had to learn, like lighting and things like that. But a lot of times, that's why I like to hire other artists, because I think so many people are much more talented than me. And that's collaboration. I feel like collaboration is one of the most beautiful arts there is.
Yeah, it's an orchestra. Some of our best attributes are identifying skills in others, right? Like for some of us, it's our biggest challenge, i.e. we're stubborn or control freaks or whatever. Yep. Success and happiness, those are both very subjective things. And I will never quantify success. I'll never say it's directly associated with a bank account or anything like that. But I would challenge anyone to say that Justin, who's sitting here in his own house, in his own career, in a relationship, he's very happy, doing the type of work that he wants to do. If that's not happiness and success, well, then, you have a very different definition than I do.
Are you a reviewer? Do you desire to share your opinion with everybody? Well, don't leave Mike and I at conventioNOT out of your list. Take a second, go out to your podcast provider, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever it is, and review the show. We appreciate it. We read the feedback, and we really need it.
Yeah, those other times when you're gone for 2 weeks, he's in the fucking bush in like Montana, walking up and down mountains for 10 days with dudes he may or may not know that well.
In camera work, I really cut my teeth in the hunting industry. Being from Minnesota, I graduated college and then I did the snowboarding thing. And then I took a job for a year at the Sportsman's Channel Network. And then I was living in northern Minnesota and Brainerd. I'm like, just put me on the road wherever. I just want to travel. Yeah. So I was shooting fishing and hunting. So then for years and years, and still today, like I do go on like elk hunting trips. I worked for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation for many years doing their TV show. Yeah. I absolutely just love the mountains and I love elk and everything. And this was my first year that I actually went on my own elk hunt, and it was
as a hunter, not a filmer.
Yeah. Which was really incredible, So it's like,
I've never heard you complain, Justin, about your work.
Oh yeah.
Other than your editing and being locked away, but just break it down. Cause I want people to appreciate like, hey, those videos you watch where it's just the hunter talking, there's some poor dude there lugging around heavy ass equipment. And guess what? The cart isn't 10 minutes away. Mm-hmm. So describe, like, if you wouldn't mind, describe like a rough shoot, one you've been on for elk hunting.
It started with like my boss, John Bergman. He had called me because he's like, hey, I got a hunt for you. I don't want to do this hunt because it's gnarly. So I want you to go on it, because I stay in pretty good shape, and if I have a gnarly hunt, I will train for it.
Yeah.
I have to train for it.
I've seen you do that before.
But, I mean, the average day, the gnarliest hunts that I've ever done were in like northern Nevada, in like they're at the end of September, where you're sometimes dealing with 90-degree temperatures, so it's like, and then on those days, I was bringing a GPS with me. We were doing like 21 miles in a day, and you have to go up and back down because in the middle of the day, the flies get so bad and it's so hot. So you have to do this like freaking voyage up into the mountains like 2 times in a day. And it's just seriously like this soul cleansing, physical cleansing, like work where you're just sweating everything out. But yeah, you totally like, at the end of the 8-day hunt, this is 8 days of like 20 miles a day sometimes, like at the end of the 8-day hunt, all I'm bringing is food, and I strip down all of my camera gear because it's just like,
the bare essentials.
Okay, I don't need this. I don't need that. I don't need this. I need this. Yeah. We go out like at 3:34 in the morning, you hike up way in the dark based on the wind, and then you come back usually about, by the time you get back to the lodge is about noon. You sleep for 2 hours and then you go back up like at 2 to 3 o'clock. And then you get back, sometimes at that point, because the sun's up a lot longer, you're getting back at about 9 o'clock at night, and then you sleep for 6 hours and you just like sleep deep,
For 10 days you do that.
Yeah. We were doing it for
8 to 10 days.
Yeah. 8 days or so. And it's Yeah, that was like the gnarliest work I've ever done. I have to give it to the hunters too, because the hunters equally work their ass off. It's tough work, but it's like you have this teamwork camaraderie in it, because you're just like, you're training. And a lot of the times we'll get up to an animal and like, that's why I appreciate hunters like them, because you get up to an animal and sometimes you won't take that shot because they're not the right size animal that they want. They're very much
after
in support
days
of conservation.
and days of after all that work, there's still that restraint.
It's worth it just to see the animals, and to be in the mountains,
Times when you were scared for your life?
Scary hunting stories. It's funny because like even spearfishing, when I see like we were out like a month and a half ago and saw like a 10-foot tiger shark come up, and I had like a bloody fish in my hands, and it was like exciting for me. It was cool, but I don't think I was scared at that point. But when I was elk hunting this year, my first time by myself in the mountains, I got approached by a black bear, and a lot of times black bears, aren't dangerous unless you're in between the cubs or whatever. From what I've heard. Again, I'm not a professional in any of this sense. Like I talk about surfing and diving and everything. Like I got approached by this black bear, and we had just had a standoff, and I started knocking an arrow, just like, but I was just like uncontrollable.
How close did it get to you?
Oh, just like probably 20 yards. And we just,
did you see him before he saw you?
Yeah, totally. So I made myself known for sure, because he was going to like walk into me.
How big was he?
I was probably like an adolescent to like a young mom or something.
I won't hold you to this. We can edit this, but like in that situation, like what if that thing's mad at you? Like if it keeps coming out.
Yeah, there must usually see.
Is there a guide for what you're supposed to do in that moment? Like, do you have noisemaker or something? Or do you got to fire on that thing?
I've been on a filmed hunt where we have a hunter with us, or the guide carries a sidearm, but every single state's a little bit different in their sidearm thing. So I've been on a hunt where a black bear was definitely not backing down, and he had to fire a shot, not at the animal, but just in the air. And it was fun.
But that usually changes everything.
I think there's a wonderful thing in the hunting industry when people really treat it for the management. It's like, it's like, there's definitely a sport of it. You can't deny the sport of hunting. Like, I think it's inside of us.
Yeah, there's a carnal, natural, primitive element, right?
For sure. So it's like, to get a big one is really awesome and exciting for sure. But it's also like the management of it too. It's like, and that's what kind of keeps it going too, is like the hunt of it. You're going for like the bigger ones, so you're passing down on like the smaller ones, but then it's just like you'll walk away after a 6-day hunt without an animal, but you could have shot one, but you chose not to because, and that's the same thing with spearfishing too. It's selective harvest.
The way you hear him talk consistently about, nowadays people like to say things like sustainability or, being conservative, or it's just not being an asshole, not taking more than you're going to eat.
It's obviously debatable. Like you talk to like somebody that say supports not killing animals and say is a vegan, which, I totally respect, they're conscious, consciously making decisions, which is really great, and I make my own conscious decisions, but I think there's something that can really be said, and you can I always say you can learn a lot about a person by how they wash dishes, but you can also learn a lot about a person by how they treat the environment and how they treat natural resources and how they treat, animals and things like that, because that crosses over to so many different things. And that's, again, a lot of the work that I do is with Patagonia, which is a company that I really respect too, because, a long time ago, a lot of people in the hunting industry would be like, I ain't going to deal with those granolas over there. But it's like, little do you know that they support conservation and they support hunting. It's like Kimmy, she's
because there is that like generic, and I'm just kind of stereotyping here, but like Patagonia is like liberal left wing, and like hunters are like NRA right wing, right? Like there's that dichotomy. There can be nothing in between. And
it's the gray area, that is like, I think needs to be explored a lot more. And they're doing that. And a person that is also doing that is Kimmy, which is, she's in a unique position because yes, she kills fish and she's sponsored by Patagonia. And it's just like, talk about a beautiful voice of being able to describe why hunting is conservation. It's like,
hey listeners, it's Ryan. I'm here to talk to you about subscribing to the show. The reason we ask you to do that is it helps us appear higher on searches and be more popular across the podcast networks.
if you wouldn't mind, I'm sure Kimmy's getting asked all the time these days about all these changes she's going through. What about you, big guy? For the record, it still exists that when your friends find out things through social media, it's not that they're actually mad at you, but
it's that Kimmy is,
Kimmy is kind of a big deal. So he literally, he couldn't share it until she had to share it. And
you and like 10 other people are like, oh, thanks for telling me. I had to find out on Kimmy's.
I gave him some
I'm
shit
like,
just to keep it real. Anyways, sorry, go on, Justin.
What was the question?
I was asking you, like, just talk about it a little bit, bro.
Yeah. It all just happened. We just happened to drive by this house in a neighborhood we wanted to live in. And like, the reality is like, we did want to be in our own place, and that kind of happened. And then like a week after that, I was working in Colorado, and Kimmy was in Colorado at the same time on a different gig. We never saw each other, and she just called me, and I was in a hotel one night, in Colorado. So I was a little bit, like tired and relaxing.
Yes, absolutely.
In the hotel room, and she calls me. And
in Colorado, he was very relaxed.
She's just like, just silent and like, I'm pregnant. And I was just like, I was like fully speechless.
Out of nowhere, right? Like, totally not to get too like planning. Holy moly.
But I mean, she's 39, and we knew that like the reality is like, okay, we need to get on that sometime. We didn't think we would be announced like which is actually a wonderful thing. I
perfect.
A lot of times, dude, because that's something that I really did want. I wanted to have like stake our own claim when we had a kid. So it's like, for me, I grew up in very conservative, like Midwest, where it's just like, we have our own house. We didn't rent. I grew up in a great childhood with my parents, and like, but we had something that was ours and nobody could take away. And I think that was important for me, is to have something of my own, that something couldn't be taken away. So then, we decided to, we didn't decide to have a child. Like the child kind of chose us.
Yes.
I feel like that's kind of like, okay, you got a house. You told the universe, Justin, that you wanted to wait until you have a house.
Yeah.
You got a fucking house. Like, here's your child.
Yeah. You got one foot down. Here's the other one. Yeah. You are firmly planted now, my friend.
Totally. And just to come clean on all that, I was going to ask her to marry me. Like at that same time, I had been looking in January, and then I think we got the house in July, and then we found out we were pregnant in July. So it was like, I did have the ring, but then I just waited a little bit, and then and now it's like, okay, well, I mean, the society norms, like marriage is like, like if you want to be in the system as far as tax purposes and things like that. I know I want to be with Kimmy, but don't think marriage was ever like a massive thing for us.
No, I can relate.
A little bit more important, and like, there's rules or whatever, like in society norms, but I think that's, if you know us, we don't really follow the rules.
Exactly. There's expectations.
Yeah. So we're just trying to how to figure out how to evolve in a way that it's just like, okay, we're going to have a child. Like, what does that mean as far as our work goes and everything like that? And I'm really stoked that her brands are really supportive of her, having a kid. She's not going to get, what is it called when you have a kid and you get work off? Maternity leave,
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like,
I don't think she's going to get that
leave for Kimmy, but we'll just have to to figure that out. And then, and Kimmy's just been so great and so healthy and like so amped. She loves being pregnant and like loves having a baby in her belly. A lot of the questions that come up for Kimmy is like, well, do you still free dive as a pregnant mother? And she does, she's a little bit more safer, and I keep a closer eye, but it's like, even funny, I need to keep an eye on Kimmy because she's so talented, but I do, like a father.
Well, you can't help it at this point. I mean, so what the hell do people ask about? Just due to external dangers or physiological pressures and stuff like that? Are
mostly
there
the oxygen depriving the baby or the fetus of oxygen.
Holy moly, I'm such an idiot. That wasn't the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
So his fiance Kimmy, I've gone diving with him before. And she'll go down and then she's gone. And if you're not going, when you're diving with someone, a good dive partner is watching the other person the whole time, never losing sight of the other person, i.e. in a worst case scenario, you may need to go down there and get that person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I never thought of there being a fetus and that aspect. Is there any work on that? Has anyone ever academically studied that?
Not so much. There isn't like much done on it. That's why so many people ask her about it. And a lot of people will write into her like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that.
Interesting. So even though no one knows, people still have opinions on it.
Exactly. But she's been asking like this other lady who just gave birth to a healthy child who is also an apnea
regular diver. Okay. An apnea diver, even kind of gnarlier, right? In terms of.
Totally. But that was her life. There isn't much work done on it, and she feels good. The baby's healthy. She gets paranoid, sometimes when we come home from a long dive or just when she's exhausted, she's like, I just want to feel the baby move,
Man, yeah,
and it's like the baby's healthy, the baby's kicking, and the baby's going to be like probably spearfishing by the age of 3.
You mentioned something, and I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about, Justin's a very private person, but the reality is his private life is very public. He's engaged to someone who's in the public eye, and by the public eye, I mean anyone who, Instagram, Facebook, that sort of shit. When I make a post, maybe like 30 or 40 of my friends and relatives notice it. When Justin's fiance, wife, I'm going to use all those things interchangeably. Hopefully no one's offended by that. But when Kimmy makes a post, like 40,000 people notice it. I don't know. Is it more than that these days? I don't know. All I'm getting like at is, oh shit. Yeah. Sorry. It's in the 6 figures now. What I'm getting at is that, we live in a day and age where that is seen as a measure of success. It's viewed and valued very differently by each and every person. The reality, though, is like not that many people of us are those people. And I say people because they're just normal people at the end of the day. That's their lives they're sharing with an potentially infinite audience. And to be clear, the majority of things that Justin and Kimmy do that get any sort of public attention, and it's almost always positive, and it's almost unanimously positive, because whether you're appreciating the visual of it, whether you're appreciating the adventure of it, whether you're appreciating the moral behind it, if you take the time to read the Kimmy's words or Justin's words, there's a lot more than just meets the eye here. You share this shit and you can't control what comes back at you. And Justin and I have had a lot of conversations over the years just about like, he mentioned something earlier about, I know he's at a point in his career where he has professional obligations in terms of like his posting and things like that. He has to share, he has to market, he has to distribute that stuff. He has people that pay him to expand their product, and so do Kimmy. But I think there's a lot of teenagers and kids out there that would dream of being that one day, of being an influencer, right? There's a name for it. You laugh because I know you've never said that in your life. Do you look at your Instagram anymore?
Yeah. No, I definitely do. Kimmy encourages me to pursue doing Instagram because it's kind of like a necessary thing. And there's it's a big part of her business, which I think that if we were both so Instagram heavy, it'd be like a kind of I don't even know what our relationship would be.
Yeah.
One thing I do have to say is I don't think higher than any person that has more followers than the other person, all because the person has, say, 1 million viewers or 200,000 viewers, doesn't really change my outlook on them based on things like that, which is no respect or disrespect. It's just like a reality of like where my brain is, because I think this whole Instagram it's beautiful because you can create whoever you want to be, and then put this persona to the world, and whether they accept that or don't accept that, that's the person you are to that world. I don't think a lot of the influencers, quote unquote influencers today are basically,
I hope they're not actually influencing people, right?
The sad thing is a lot of them are influencing our current state of society and how people think and how people treat certain things or buy certain things. It's like this turnover of media. And it's just like, people are just like, oh, I just want to be an influencer. And it's just like, and Kimmy, it's funny because Kimmy got introduced as like an influencer at this thing. And
Oh no.
she was just like, what? Like, I would prefer if they didn't call me an influencer, because honestly, like, I've been doing these things I've been doing, and I still would be doing these things. You know?
It's power, right? Like with any power comes responsibility. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, it's really scary that Kylie Jenner is extremely influential. I'm not really sure what she's out there influencing, but I know that I don't want to be influenced by her. So that's going to screw up. Now she's never going to come on the show, unfortunately.
That whole thing, because Kimmy and I get in those conversations a lot, you know, like, because I have a personal connection to it, because I see behind the scenes of somebody who is an
well, yeah,
influencer.
like you've seen them make the meat, right? So like your ability to see the authenticity or lack thereof, it's sometimes knowing too much, right? Like you've met a lot of these, maybe not a lot of these people, but enough of them.
Yeah, there is, that definitely exists, but I don't think I'm just like constantly thinking about, oh, is this person authentic? On Instagram, I guess.
I know that social media, it's like a dark cloud, right? But you mentioned like there's powers of good, you know, like it can be used.
Bright cloud, you know, it's like inspiration. I have a great conversations with Kimmy, because she really helps me kind of sort those feelings and out. And then she's like came back and really kind of gave me a really great perspective. And I always am just like, cool. I'm still not going to really like put that much time and energy into it. Like some of the coolest people I meet, like don't even have Instagram or care about social media. And I just like have the greatest conversations with them.
You're an incredibly complete person. You are so, you're so open and receptive. And I didn't know the teenage you. I bet you're a little bastard, but
I was a bastard.
You know, we all were. But the version of you that I've known since I knew you was an amazing, facilitator, right? And like, that's what you do for a living. You're not trying to force people to see, even though that's technically exactly what you're doing. You're forcing people to see through your lenses, but you don't like, that's not your attitude and that's not your demeanor. And you seem to be very, by no means malleable or compliant, but you're very willing to accept what's on both sides of that lens, you know, and what's behind you. And in other words, to participate without influencing. And I don't, like I said, that may be too much of that's not a judgment. That's an observation of you since I've known you. But one of the other things that like I take from you, and I think it's part of the reason why you and I have always gotten along really well, is you're really fucking sensitive to your surroundings.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely sensitive.
I've never seen you be offended. That sensitivity may go both ways, but in the way you speak of Kimmy, your fiance, you know, not only your love for her, but your pride in her abilities and talent. You know, I know you've spent a lot of time and effort in documenting and applauding your sister's successes.
Yeah.
You know, stance. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but, you know, I'm kind of getting at, you have a very and I have this in me. I was a mama's boy. I grew up very, very close with my mom. I have 3 older sisters.
Me too.
So I've always had, I don't know, I felt like an ability to connect with the, you know, better sex very easily. I was never like a player or a dog or anything like that. So I don't mean in that sense, but I just mean in terms of like that, maybe that side of my brain, which is helping me get to my full point here, is that, Justin, like you're on one side of you, it'd be easy for people to look at what you do and your activities, and without knowing, you think you're like this super macho, manly man who likes to kill shit and surf and right. Like, I mean, if they didn't know you, if I just wrote a couple things down or showed some pictures, but you're an incredibly complete person, and I'm not blowing smoke. It's why I wanted to talk to you today. That's why I love you so much, man. Do you have any understanding of that? Yeah. Anything to say in response to that?
And I think it's just so funny because it's like the last 2 gigs I just got hit up to go shoot are for women's projects that are on women. And I definitely connect with the feminine energy too. Of course, from readings that I've done when I was younger, we all have masculine and feminine energy, and I think this world needs more feminine energy around it. I'd be excited to see a proper woman president running this country. Amen. It's like, I think the feminine energy is such a beautiful energy, and seeing Kimmy having a baby, I was just like having a conversation. It's just like, like you're talking about the machismo or the masculine energy, where it's just like, the power and the money, go to these powerful men, that can control. Right. And it's just like, and then all of a sudden you flip the world on its head, and then you see these women producing. We all came from a women's vagina. Right. Yep. And it's just like, okay, so who actually has the power in this world, And I really, truly, genuinely feel that. I think my mom is like the most incredible, loving person. And there's a power in being able for her to deal with my dad. Right. There's a power for Kimmy to be able to handle with me, and seeing my sister, right. The energy that, and when my sister had a medical issue, and when I was able to like see her go through what she went through, it's just like I had like a real strong connection to like, wow, my sister's a really powerful woman. And shooting Stance, an all female project, and now doing a lot more female oriented projects, whether it's female surfing or shooting a lot with Kimmy, has really kind of like, I don't know. It's not weird for me, there is a big women's movement, right? Like there's the Me Too movement, and then the equal gender pay going on, like in the surf industry and many other industries, which I think is really
not enough.
Well, really great in many aspects. Definitely. So I think my connection to that, obviously stems with my relationship with my mom, which has always been really great, and the deep respect and love that I have for her, I think really, is just compounded then with the relationship that has grown with my sister. And then my soon to be wife is just like the person that I look at. She's like my hero. She's like my inspiration in life, and seeing like, Kimmy's sister, like Kimmy is different than her sister, and her sister, like when Kimmy and I get in a fight, I'm like, we need to call your sister to talk to.
There's a real sensible, smart person we can come in.
Yeah. And Kimmy is like more of like, I don't think Kimmy is like necessarily aggressive, but Kimmy is different than her sister. In that like her sister can just like talk through anything, and she's a counselor in her own way. So she just has this ability where when I talk with Christy, I'm just like, wow, like you are something else to be able to talk to, and just like, how do you get what's going on in my brain so much? Kimmy also has that skill too, but Kimmy is also like, I'm in a relationship with Kim. So
she's biased. She's biased.
So it's really great that I'm just surrounded by just such beautiful women in my life that I just like celebrate, like without me like celebrating them like physically or through calls or phone calls or telling them. It's just like I do celebrate them all the time,
I think you're going to see, it's obviously led you to a lot of, happiness and, contentment internally, but like professionally, I think 5-10 years from now, you may look back and I think, a page is turned, and I think I think it's going to blow up, bro. Cause I think there's something to you doing what you do with an emotional component, and I don't know how you do it. I'm just glad you do it.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
I know there's just I just got chills almost describing the most recent thing you did, which I'm not going to ask you to get into because I know we got to wrap up, but it's something to look forward to. I'm really excited, whether it's video or a short or whatever comes out of it. I know it's going to be fucking incredible. And your personal stuff coming up is pretty exciting too.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting things on the horizon, that's for sure. And there is just so much talent like on the North Shore. So it just breeds inspiration and art, in like a little island like this, and meeting people like yourself and you're kind of the family that we have all around us, just even this neighborhood, and the North Shore, like we're like the word Ohana really is like a special one because we look out for each other, and we just, we do want the best for each other, and we try to, breed that and give the best to one another, and just like have fun with life. 'Cause that's what we're here for, right? We're all going to be gone, and
it's going one way or another. You can make some choices along the way, and yeah, man, we both made some good ones. I think I made a lot of bad choices too, to be clear, but whatever the hell we did to end up here today, I'm real grateful for it.
Yeah,
and
thanks for having me,
Justin. I just want to thank you again. Just to be completely honest, I've never been real nervous for one of these. And I wasn't nervous about sitting down and talking with my buddy, because we've done this a bunch of times, but yeah, I had some internal expectations of myself, and we all know how dangerous that can be. So I'll leave it at that. And just once again, want to thank Justin for coming on today. I do want to let Justin, as much as it pains him, do a quick, this is how I can be reached type thing. So he can share what he wants to share.
Yeah. Well, Instagram is obviously just an easy one. My name is Cinematowski, or you just search Justin Turkowski. Email I'm mostly like on, which is, I think it's on my Instagram, but yeah, that seems to be like the going way to get a hold of me, or just, yeah.
I'll throw some links in the, whatever, at the end of the day. You'll be able to find Justin. He has a pretty impressive footprint out there.
Thanks, dude.
All right, brother. I'm going to wrap it up.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, brother.